The experience of being Black in Palestine is complex, shaped by intersecting histories, identities, and ongoing struggles. The African presence in the region dates back centuries, yet Black Palestinians face issues of systemic discrimination and a quest for equal rights. Their situation intertwines with the broader Israeli-Palestinian conflict, where racial dynamics become entangled with political realities. Recent escalation in Israeli-Palestinian conflict. In mid-October 2023, clashes between Israel and militant groups in Gaza escalated dramatically, unleashing a new wave of violence and humanitarian crisis. It was triggered on October 7th when Hamas launched attacks into southern Israel, killing over 1,400 people. Israel responded with overwhelming force, bombarding Gaza for weeks. Over 10,000 Palestinians were killed, including over 4,300 children, in just 31 days of relentless Israeli attacks, according to Palestinian health officials. Gaza's infrastructure was systematically destroyed, including power, water, and sanitation systems impacting the entire population. Over 70% of Gaza's 2.3 million residents were displaced from their homes, with many squeezing into schools and shelters at night. Israel imposed a blockade on Gaza, cutting off vital supplies of food, fuel, and medicine. The sewage system stopped functioning, healthcare operations ground to a halt without power for equipment, blood banks, or incubators for premature babies. Palestinians reported long queues forming just for water and wheat flour. In a split second, Gaza has been turned into a black box. One resident described of the darkness and lack of mobility at night during blackouts. The crisis unleashed strong condemnation worldwide. Multiple UN delegates voiced solidarity with Palestinians, highlighting war crimes and their denied right to self-determination. Protests erupted globally against the Israeli military actions and occupation. Israel claimed it was legally responding to Hamas's unprovoked attacks from civilian areas, and that Jews worldwide now face increased anti-Semitic violence as a result of the crisis. But critics charge that the overwhelming bombardment of Gaza by Israel had deliberately inflicted disproportionate harm and mass displacement of families in violation of international law. This recent violence reflects the turbulent history in the decades-old Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Peace initiatives have repeatedly stalled over final status issues like settlements, borders, security, and control of Jerusalem. The current humanitarian emergency and loss of hope, especially for Gaza youth, fuels warnings that moderates are losing influence to extremists as the cycles of attacks and reprisals continue. Roots of the Black Palestinian experience. To understand what it's like to be Black in Palestine, one must trace the diverse African presence woven throughout the region's history. That background reveals how Black Palestinians' identity has uniquely intersected with the evolution of the broader Palestinian national movement. Evidence of African migration and influence in the territory spans over 1,000 years. African Muslims accompanied Arab armies entering Jerusalem after its conquest in 638 CE. Enslaved Africans were incorporated into the growing regional economy over many centuries. Wealthy Arab families in Jaffa and Gaza participated in the trading of black slaves during the Ottoman Empire. More recent generations of Africans arrived from Chad, Nigeria, Sudan, and Senegal starting in the late 19th century. For some, their ancestry traces back to pilgrims traveling to holy sites. Others came voluntarily as migrant workers and merchants. Colonial railway projects and British military facilities recruited freed black slaves. Most descended from forced migration as captured slaves under Arab, Ottoman, and European slave trading systems. Today, over 10,000 Afro-Palestinians reside scattered in Jerusalem, Gaza City, and West Bank towns and refugee camps. Varied paths of tragedy and resilience converge in their collective narrative. Now, most can claim 4 or 5 generations' deep-rootedness in Palestinian soil, a foundation for demanding equal rights after facing generations of discrimination. Systemic racism and barriers for Black Palestinians. Despite familial ties stretching back over 100 years, Black Palestinians face ingrained systemic racism, exacerbating their oppression under Israeli occupation. They endure dual discrimination for both their Palestinian nationality and Black identity. No precise statistics exist, but Black minorities are disproportionately impoverished with less access to quality education, skilled employment, housing, healthcare, and justice. Without equal paths for socioeconomic mobility, their marginalization widens. Black soccer prodigy Mohammed Abu Rash dreams of becoming the next star like Lionel Messi. But no matter his talent, the racial equity gap impedes his chances for success, from quality coaching to getting scouted abroad. Many report constant scrutiny, having to overperform just to prove equal worth in the workplace, school, and society due to skin color stigma. Cyberbullying and public insults target Black Palestinians frequently, especially youth. Structural barriers include discouragement and obstacles towards intermarriage with lighter-skinned Palestinians. Some Black families isolate themselves as much as possible from society to avoid racist verbal and physical attacks. Younger generations push for organized efforts to reform societal attitudes through public campaigns against anti-Black prejudice. But statistic collection and policy changes come slowly due to lack of funding and political inertia regarding minorities. Movements for Black Palestinian recognition. In recent years, grassroots groups formed to advocate for Black Palestinians by documenting systemic abuses like police brutality, profiling, employment discrimination, and restricted ability to display cultural pride openly. Their advocacy to raise public awareness about racism seeks tangible institutional reform. Organizations like the Afro-Palestinian Forum aim to formally codify ethnic identity rights for Black Palestinians in the Palestinian Authority's founding documents like the Draft Constitution. Other cultural groups like El Griana celebrate Afro-Palestinian heritage and history through workshops and public art. Its name combines griot, West African storyteller, with Arabic terms for struggle and resilience. But significant disagreement exists within Palestinian human rights circles on precisely diagnosing and solving anti-Black racism, colorism, and discrimination. Some downplay oppression from Arab society by unfairly dismissing it as a side effect of the occupation or blaming migrant worker dynamics. That echoes familiar right-wing xenophobic rhetoric in Europe regarding immigrants and refugees. Other Palestinian progressives argue that without sincerely confronting all forms of systemic marginalization, including class, gender, and racial, internally first, true liberation remains impossible. For them, the mass exclusion of Black Palestinian voices undermines moral authority in resisting Israeli human rights violations. Oppressed groups merely copy the oppressor's tools without progress. Furthermore, the lack of education about the full history of Africans in Palestine perpetuates ignorance leading towards racism, left unchecked. Many express shock discovering facts around the brutal, long-hidden slave trading activities by elite Gaza families only 2 centuries ago. Journalist Ali Backett noted bluntly, "There are no clear historical sources that speak about the African minority in Gaza. Indeed, erased history promotes systemic inequity to endure. But awareness coupled with empowerment initiates change, as some families have discovered across generations." Teacher Ahmad Al-Raig overcame discrimination through excelling at education and shielding his children from prejudice in Gaza. In turn, his daughter Sama gained confidence to become an outspoken activist and leader, shaping an inclusive vision for Palestine's future beyond ethnicity or skin tone, limiting human potential. Navigating intersecting identities as Black Palestinians. Black Palestinians describe their intersectional identity as a double-edged sword. They endure particularized discrimination with unique tools to overcome imposed structural barriers. Yet full autonomy both individually and collectively as an ethnic nation within another emerging nation stays frustratingly unfinished. At the same time, solidarity with their fellow countrymen against Israeli occupation creates a complex push and pull dynamic. Black Palestinians undoubtedly consider Palestine their rightful multicultural homeland too, regardless of skin tone and with claim to equity in any self-determination solution. Their advocacy voices frequently get selectively elevated at opportune moments by global allies and media, especially increased international condemnation of military attacks that further displace or endanger them alongside other Palestinians. Other times, their disadvantage reversed into a strategic advantage to highlight racial injustice on the world stage. For example, high-profile complaints about disproportionate aggression towards Black Palestinians compared to lighter-skinned Palestinians occasionally goes viral to draw instant sympathy and outrage. South African leader Julius Malema proclaimed boldly in a speech during the latest Gaza crisis, "We are here to tell Israel and the world to know that we are on the side of Palestine. We are not neutral because neutrality during difficult times is equal to siding with the oppressor." His comments and mass protests went viral, funded primarily by allies from the African diaspora. Such selective, intense support also breeds resentment afterwards. Once viral clashes get suppressed again into uneasy ceasefires, the specific anti-Black racism frequently continues with renewed vigor for those who permanently reside in Palestinian territory rather than observing tragedies from abroad. For them, the deep frustrations overflow continuously. After famous external personalities make speeches about bombings and occupation, little changes in their daily lives dealing with threats or restricted opportunities tied to skin color stigma. An Afro-Palestinian woman vented pointedly in one video clip seen by many. "Palestinians are racist to Black people. This should be a lesson for Palestinians and the Arab community in general to stop being racist towards Black people because when shit hits the fan, it's Black people that come out and fight for the oppressed." Her scathing observations reflect a breaking point where global outrage focuses everywhere except on the daily injustices right at home, targeting Black minorities day after mundane day, even as calls for Palestinian rights circulate widely. Historical ironies, contemporary hypocrisies. Furthermore, painful rifts within the African diaspora reveal far more complicated histories, layered ironies, and modern hypocrisies around universal Black liberation goals. Unresolved tensions undermine solidarity even from groups battling white supremacy dominance. Some Pan-Africanist Black Americans argue Arab racism merely piles on simply as one of countless perpetrators against people of color worldwide. Critics like Ashton T. Sawyer proclaimed passionately online, "You got police killing Black people in America every day, mass incarceration, and you want me to go crying for white and brown people? I'm not going to do it. My priority is on Africa and African people." Sawyer and others note the irony that intellectual arguments about Palestine often serve to distract from or even devalue urgent issues devastating fellow African descendants first. Outrage appears selective. For example, crises for Ethiopians, Sudanese, Congolese, and other severe conflicts get ignored by pro-Palestinian allies despite prolific mass displacement, starvation, and genocides devastating those Black nations concurrently. These rifts, also manifest in visceral ways around religious lines, invoking painful historical memories tied to identity. An Afro-Palestinian woman angrily recalls being derided as a brainwashed Christian traitor to Palestinians for refusing to condemn Israel as uniformly evil. But she rebuts by citing Arab Muslims' role perpetrating the massive historic enslavement, castration, and deaths of millions of Africans over 1,300 years in the trans-Saharan slave trades. Those traumatic memories passed down through oral histories and material culture, like at tourist sites spotlighting chains and torture implements from captured slaves displayed proudly to this day. She refuses to support either warring side in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, after those long, abusive religious and racial dynamics that still marginalize Black minorities. Her frustration signifies the multi-generational even when both share same nationality now. Additionally, Rastafarians and some Black Hebrew Israelites diaspora groups view the biblical Holy Lands through alternative lenses that complicate stances on Israel itself and notions of their own place in it. It underscores divisions even among Black Jews from Ethiopia and broader African regions with diverging theologies despite seemingly cohesive racial oppression experiences, battling white supremacy systems together that might imply automatic ideological affinity. So practical solidarity disintegrates, not guaranteed based on simple Blackness or skin color alone. Even shared lived experience fighting white racism doesn't preclude clashes with Arab, Jewish, or light-skinned Palestinian similar forces simultaneously in quest for their own liberation. The complex matrices of disadvantage and advantage surrounding Black Palestinians dynamically shift in emphasis over time and context. But calls for addressing their distinct needs endure consistently even as movements ebb and flow elsewhere. Navigating external and internal struggles. What emerges within these turbulent historical currents are multiplicities of oppression channeled through Black Palestinian voices today, who, above all, seek dignity and full belonging in their homeland as equals. Their disadvantage as an invisible minority has hindered but never erased this vision. If the latest eruption of displacement and death taught anything, it is that time has run out for incremental changes to social equity gaps affecting Blacks in Palestinian territories without urgent confrontation. With so much loss in lives, land, and scarce resources, addressing these stubborn internal biases before adequate healing becomes impossible is paramount. Young Afro-Palestinians understand navigating their precarious dual identities fraught with tensions. They know the inventory of historical cruelties runs long and bloody from all directions. They know the orangers of theologies. They know opposing biases may never fully unbraid back to origin tales of injustice before renewal takes hold. But most of all, Afro-Palestinians focus squarely on excavating, then addressing all that lies right in front of their communities, obstructing their babies from dreaming, then pursuing purposeful lives free from man-made barriers tied illogically to skin color or background limiting human potential. With patient but unrelenting collective pressure, they optimize disadvantages into tools, revealing how systemic inequality damages the very soul of their nation, all while constructing alternative roads to empowerment and equality. Seeking unity through recognizing common humanity. The unfinished quest to resolve interwoven identity issues and justice conflicts remains messy and convoluted as discussions swing from present turmoil to bygone eras then back again. But the internal journey continues toward a vision recast beyond categorization differences. In creative spaces, Afro-Palestinians promote historical mythical symbols of unity like the majestic Arabian oryx. Unlike notions of purity, used dangerously to divide groups into hierarchies, The oryx's patchwork fur patterns provide camouflage importance from predators. So too, the patchwork quilt of colorful diversity across humankind must be woven back together as interdependent sanctuaries against violence. Healing starts with bearing witness to others' painful past and present, but then moving beyond blame into shared responsibility for change. Through compassionate education, future generations may shift from harmful divisions over identity towards embracing strength in ethnic and cultural differences as ingrained early as kindergarten. Palestinians often take pride in their history as an enduring melting pot society that prospered from multiplicity. Though strained and segregated severely now, resurrecting that vision of harmonious belonging offers inspiration to repair tears, coloring all facets of society today. With hard work, that utopian seed shall blossom Palestine-wide, where all citizens, including Afro-Palestinians, finally discover identities as rich and free as their own sovereign homeland promised, perpetually protected, safe from toxicity, and secure to contribute vibrant dreams equally. The fruits born of visionary Palestinian justice advocates shall ripen towards fundamental human rights, cemented for all who call the cherished homeland their permanent home. One day, that universal message of embracing shared humanity and dignity may even eclipse tragic old cycles of conflict built by fear and toxic divisions. Though long exploited selectively at opportune moments as props during clashes, the nuanced calls of Black Palestinians shall fade no more back into the fabric of resistance narratives, but instead flourish up front all year through as guides. Through their prism, Palestinians model reconciling histories and charting equitable new courses, shielding no community vulnerable from being exploited as fodder when diplomacy recurs, then fails. All who belong to Palestine's multicultural legacies shall walk in lockstep towards justice. Thus, unified external liberation follows escape from internal chains. Thanks for watching. For more melanin-rich content, hit the notification bell and subscribe to the channel. See you next time. Peace.